sounded like in Baghdad.
There are no survivors.
Against the Al-Qaeda terrorist training camp.
People, lorries and cars.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In 1969, Neil Armstrong delivered his famous words from the moon. By this time, China had already been working on its first manned spacecraft research for 2 years. Chen Shui-sun, the father of China's rocketry program, dared to dream big.
At 9:30 that night, the fifth country in the world, following the Soviet Union,
播事业局报告，收到了东方红1号播送的《东方红乐曲》，声音清晰洪亮。
Before China's first spacecraft was born, it had a significant name, Shuguang, First Light of Dawn. The Chinese plan was to put 2 astronauts in space within 2 years. In 1971, the first 19 candidates were chosen. Like the Soviets and Americans, they were all fighter pilots.
这段影像记录了上世纪70年代中国航天员的早期训练过程。改装后的小型飞机成为失重实验室，在高速下坠中实现40多秒的失重状态。摄影机拍下了坐在后排的锻炼员在失重环境下练习吃东西、喝水的过程。
Due to a social turbulent era, China could not afford to undertake such a massive project. China's first manned space project was halted after 8 years. The United States had already completed 6 crewed missions to the moon, and by this time in 1975, launched 2 Mars landers, Viking 1 and 2. But there was a silver lining. Chairman Mao Zedong and US President Gerald Ford held a historic meeting in Beijing. 6 days before their meeting, China launched its first recoverable satellite, Tiangong, laying the foundation for its future success in space. The turning point was in September 21st, 1992, after a 17-year break. China decided to restart its manned space program and set a clear and ambitious path. Named after the date, Project 921 was born. It had a 3-step blueprint. First, put an astronaut in space and ensure his or her safe return. Second, carry out extravehicular activities or EVA and launch a space lab. Third, build a crewed space station. China began building its new crewed spacecraft. It was based on Tianbing satellite technology, but with a new name, Shenzhou. 4 Shenzhou craft cleared all technical obstacles soon after. But now, the big question: who's going to be China's first man in space? In 1998, 14 candidates were selected from among China's best pilots. They were thrown into the harshest training environment, also with help from Russia. Only one was chosen. China aimed to launch its first manned mission in 2003, but it turned out to be one of the most disastrous years in the history of spaceflight.
The Columbia's lost. There are no survivors.
There were 2 tragedies in the United States and Brazil. 28 people in total died. The pressure was on China, but it kept the launch date unchanged. At 9 a.m. October 15, as the steel tower released the launch vehicle, the nation held its breath. History was made. Young Li Wei became a legend, the first Chinese person in space. China joined ranks of the Soviet Union and the United States. 2 years later, Shenzhou 6 carried another 2 astronauts into space. China had accomplished the first step of the 921 project. The next step was EVA and a space lab. A month after the end of the Beijing Olympics, 2 astronauts did the first spacewalk in 2008. But things didn't go their way.
这个时候的出舱活动新疆展开，轨道舱火灾，
轨道舱火灾，轨道舱火灾，轨道舱火灾，连续3遍，非常急促。
突然间听见“火灾”这2个字儿，脑瓜子、脑皮子发麻呀，就感觉脑皮子唰一下子就是凉了一下，感觉到头发每一根都立起来了，瞬间的第一反应就是这个反应。
而且我眼睛看到的仪表上，就像消防车那个灯一样，红的在闪。
这个最难处置的2个特殊情况呢，一个就是火灾，一个就是舱体失去密封。
我当时甚至想，如果关上舱门，如果发现有一点火苗趋势，我会当即决断，让返回舱值守舰把我们的舱门分离，让我和志刚分离出去，让他平安无事。当时内心的斗争真是异常的复杂。
Thankfully, it was a false alarm. The vacuum had affected the instrument board. In 2011, the US Congress passed the Wolf Amendment. NASA was banned from space collaboration with China or any China-owned company. But this did not stop China's quest for space exploration. Not long after, China sent its first target spacecraft into orbit and carried out automatic and manual docking. And finally, female astronauts joined the team. Tiangong 1 was an entry-level space lab. Its main tasks were docking and orbital experiments. Tiangong 2 was a more advanced version. It tested technologies needed for the construction of space station. Astronauts started to spend more time in space. In 2016, the Shenzhou 11 circled the Earth for over a month with astronauts on board. In 2017, China's manned space program completed its second step. The first cargo spacecraft, Tiangong 1, docked with Tiangong 2 3 times. It tested a series of new technologies, including transportation of living supplies and in-orbit refueling. Then began the third step, building the space station. It's called Tiangong or Heavenly Palace. It consists of a core module and 2 experimental modules and can dock with manned spacecraft and cargo ships. The core module was finally ready for launch. It blasted off in April 2021. 2 months later, 3 astronauts on board Shenzhou 12 entered space. They opened the hatch and began their 3 months in a new home.
哇，在外面太漂亮，光亮了，下面有白云朵朵，像海洋一样的，跟随我的步伐，一起自由的飞翔吧。
China's space station will be completed in 2022. After 3 decades, over 10,000 days, and hundreds of launches, China can proudly say it has a home in space.